So 2019 is starting to really take form. What can we expect from Spongebob Squarepants in terms of video games for the year? Let's discuss the possibilities right now.
I got hot sauce in my bag, swag.
Hello there, beautiful human. My name is RidersDX and welcome to my channel, where today we're going to be talking about the future of Spongebob Squarepants in terms of video games for the upcoming year. So this is a discussion that I wanted to do for a while now, since the very beginning of the year. I was kind of waiting for there to be like some kind of news regarding his video games, but I don't think the news is going to be coming anytime soon, at least from what it looks like. So I thought this would be a really good time to just have a good discussion about what it is we think might happen this year and what it is we want to happen this year. So hope you all will join me as we discuss some of the possibilities for SpongeBob for the upcoming year. Before we get started, I wanted to share something very special with you all. So this person didn't make a fan art, they made a whole animated video of my avatar battling their own avatar, and it just looks pretty awesome. So this, what you're seeing right now, is a Minecraft animation video by SpongeBob Sonic 10, and it looks pretty badass. So basically, the audio playing behind it is an audio from a Sonic X episode where Sonic battles Knuckles, and basically our avatars are lip syncing to it, and yeah, it just is awesome. So I definitely recommend you go check it out. I'll leave a link in the top right corner and also in the description box below. But thank you so much for this. This is by far one of the most awesome things I've seen people do. So yeah, I just really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Back to the topic at hand. So with 2019 rolling around, I'm a little bit doubtful actually in terms of what kind of SpongeBob news we're going to get in terms of video games this year. And the reason for that is I'll do a bit of a recap. So back last year in March of 2018, we saw an article announcing that THQ Nordic had acquired a bunch of Nickelodeon franchises in terms of video game rights, and that they were going to bring back a ton of different titles from the past to modern gamers. And of course, the first title that everyone thought about was SpongeBob Battle For Bikini Bottom, which is arguably the most successful title to have come out in terms of Nickelodeon video games from THQ back in the past. So we were all kind of assuming that something like that was going to happen last year, but ever since March, there's been pretty much little to no mention of these games and what the progress of them are from THQ Nordic. And we've even had some Twitter messages from THQ Nordic telling us that, like, to be patient, to just wait, there's no news right now. And yeah, we're just kind of left in the dark wondering what's gonna happen and what they're gonna do. And so I don't know, it's kind of frustrating for me personally, because I really want to see SpongeBob take off again in terms of video games. Like, I really miss the days that we at least had a SpongeBob game coming out each year, because even though they were both good and bad, at least it was alive, Like, if y'all think about it, the last mainline SpongeBob game we had was Hero Pants, and that was back in 2015. So that's quite a gap, I mean, okay, sure, we did have Nickelodeon kart racers last year, but to be honest, I don't necessarily count that because only a fourth of it was SpongeBob related, and so it was not a true SpongeBob Squarepants game. And also the game itself was kind of underwhelming. I mean, I still enjoyed it personally, but it's just like, if you ask me what game I want to see most from the Nickelodeon lineup, it would not be a kart racing game with only 12 Nickelodeon characters. I want a brand new SpongeBob 3D platformer, and I don't know if that's gonna happen this year or not. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about some ideas of what we would like to see from the SpongeBob franchise in terms of video games this year, but whether or not we'll actually see it, we're just gonna have to wait and see. I mean, THQ Nordic has at least been acknowledging fans on Twitter who have been asking about this, and by the way, there have been people asking about this like every single tweet that they tweet out. So they definitely know that there's a demand for it out there, and they did make that announcement back in March, so they can't just like sweep it under the rug. They made that announcement. If for some reason it didn't work out, then I would imagine they'd at least say something about it and not just tease fans with tweets like this. So I do think that something will come eventually. I just don't know when that is, and it's very frustrating, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. So I have a few ideas of what I love to see in terms of SpongeBob games this year, and the first one I'm just gonna talk about is a really obvious one, and I'm sure everyone wants this to happen. happen, so I'm just gonna go over it really quickly. But Battle For Bikini Bottom Remaster or Remake. So there's a lot of talk right now about the possibility of there being a remaster or remake of this game, and there's even a fan project going around right now that's gonna be a remake slash reimagining of the game, and I made a video about that a few days ago if you want to go check that out. I'll leave a link in the top right corner right now. It's a really great project, so I definitely recommend you check it out to, if anything, to tide you over until THQ Nordic actually does something about the demand. But I do think that this is one of the most likely things to come out this year if we're gonna get anything, because if a remaster or a remake, there's really not as much that they need to put into it as they would for like a brand new SpongeBob game. And since THQ Nordic had just obtained the license for SpongeBob games, it would seem pretty reasonable to have this as a first entry in terms of like what this company is doing for SpongeBob, because one, you already have the base game there, so you don't really need to redesign that much, and two, it would really be a great way to gauge the interest of SpongeBob fans in terms of video games, because this was the most defining SpongeBob game as far as I am concerned anyway, and definitely the most famous one of all the games in his library. So if there's one game you want to remaster or remake and see what kind of interest there is for SpongeBob games, then this would be that game. And of course, Heavy Iron Studios, as far as I know, is not really doing anything right now. Their last video game came out in 2017 according to Wikipedia, and I know Wikipedia is not a trustworthy source, so if I'm actually wrong, they did make games last year, then let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, as far as I know, Heavy Iron Studios is not doing anything for SpongeBob right now, and on their Facebook page actually, they've made mentions about SpongeBob Battle For Bikini Bottom on there, you know, acknowledging the fact that's got a huge speedrunning community on Twitch. So Heavy Iron Studios is definitely aware of the popularity surrounding Battle For Bikini Bottom right now, and I'm sure if THQ Nordic reached out to them and wanted them to remaster or remake the game, they would definitely be up for it. They just seem like a great company for SpongeBob. We've seen 3 games from them at this point, and you know, they may have varied in terms of quality. They always have had that love and affection for SpongeBob Squarepants in those games in terms of like various references, scripts, and all that. So it really is a no-brainer that Heavy Iron Studios needs to be working on something SpongeBob related, and a Battle For Bikini Bottom remaster or remake just seems like the most likely and logical thing for THQ Nordic to do. Another idea that I actually would prefer the most out of all the options I'm going to be discussing is a brand new 3D SpongeBob adventure, and more specifically, I want Heavy Iron Studios to be making this adventure. Now, as much as I would love the idea of a Battle For Bikini Bottom remake, I'm not necessarily dying for it. I mean, I think the original game is as good as it is, and though like the original game did have some cut content, I really don't feel like there's much else they need to do to the game to make it better. I do think the game is as great as it is on its own, so I just don't think that like a Battle For Bikini Bottom remake or remaster, at least for me, is the most desirable thing right now. I mean, it might be a great way actually to bring fans back to the franchise, because you know, after the Battle For Bikini Bottom movie games came out, the SpongeBob video games probably did not do as well as they used to, and of course it kind of did start creating that reputation that like SpongeBob games are just like any other licensed games, you know, just cheap cash-ins to make money. You know, this would be a really great way to bring fans of those 2 games back to the franchise and to create more interest in a similar fashion as to what they did with Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. So it definitely would be a smart business move, but for me personally, I really want to see a brand new SpongeBob adventure, especially considering the fact that we haven't gotten one since Hero Pants. And of course, Plankton's Robotic Revenge and Hero Pants are very disappointing titles, at least from what I can see. I haven't actually tried them, so I can't like actually legitimately say that I don't like them, but from what I can tell and from what I've seen of the gameplay, it just does not look like the SpongeBob adventure I'm looking for. So if I really need to be honest, that's what I want to see most from SpongeBob this year, is a brand new 3D adventure that lives up to the awesomeness that is the 3 Heavy Iron Studios games. So yeah, I really hope that if not this year, that it is something that THQ Nordic is planning for the future, because that's definitely SpongeBob's strongest suit, is those big 3D platforming adventures. Another possibility I could imagine is a different kind of SpongeBob game apart from a 3D platformer. So SpongeBob has had quite a few spin-offs in terms of different genres in the past. I mean, he's obviously had the party game with Lights, Camera, Pants. He's had a bit of a racing slash boat bashing game with Boating Bash, and he's also had a bunch of sports games with Nicktoons crossovers. So SpongeBob definitely has a lot of spin-offs that he's done in the past, and of course just recently recently he was a part of a kart racer with Nickelodeon characters, so that is also a possibility. And I'm thinking that like if they want to like cash into like various trends, like maybe make like a party game for example, then that's a complete possibility. I really don't see one in particular that I really want to see right now. I mean, if you asked me this question like at this exact same time last year, I probably would have said a kart racing game, because I think it would have been such a cool idea to have a lot of SpongeBob characters racing each other in karts. But obviously we kind of got that Nickelodeon kart racers, except not really, because there was only 3 SpongeBob characters, which is just sad. But anyway, I don't really want to see a spin-off game. Like I said before, I really want to see a mainline 3D platformer for SpongeBob. But if we were gonna get a spin-off game, I would love to see them tackle the party genre again. Lights, Camera, Pants was actually one of my biggest guilty pleasures. I love that game. It's so much fun. I think honestly the biggest criticism I have of it is just that the games can last a little bit too long sometimes, but they were really fun. I had a lot of fun with them as a kid with my brothers, so I would love to see them tackle that genre again, especially because SpongeBob is a great franchise for that kind of game. It's very fun. You can insert a lot of lighthearted jokes and references in the games and all that, and the setup of Lights, Camera, Pants is also very unique compared to other party games, so they definitely know how to make a party game. If they could get that same team to make another game, then that would be awesome. I actually don't know who developed that game now that I think about it, but whoever that team was, they did a really great job. Wonder what they're doing right now actually. Would be interesting to find out. The last possibility I could think of is a Nickelodeon game, and it could be another spin-off, kind of like the kart racing game, you know, maybe like a party game. That's basically the only other genre I feel like would suit it, or maybe some sports games, because sports games are pretty popular too, you know. And a Nickelodeon game would make sense because you could tie in a bunch of different Nickelodeon franchises and do a lot of cross promotion. You know, a lot of people might not remember, but there's quite a fair amount of Nickelodeon games that have come out in the past. I mean, the last one to come out, you know, besides Nickelodeon Kart Racers was in 2011, but before 2011 there was quite a few Nickelodeon games. Like there was basically one every single year, so it must have been profitable if they were doing it. And I imagine very well that if they started doing it again, then it could still be profitable. So a Nickelodeon game could be very possible as well, but I would rather see a SpongeBob game first, just because that's the franchise I'm most interested in and the franchise I've had the most fun from. You know, the Nickelodeon games were fun too, but they were never as fun as the SpongeBob games. At least that's just my opinion. So I'd rather see a SpongeBob game first, but that's just me. We'll actually have to wait and see what they actually do with the Nickelodeon franchise and licenses this year. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I think they could possibly do this year in terms of SpongeBob's presence in the video game world. You know, I feel like SpongeBob obviously has taken over the cartoon world with Storm and arguably the internet with all his memes and all that, but I just feel like his video games can be quite underappreciated, and I have a lot of fond memories with Battle For Bikini Bottom, the movie game, Lights, Camera, Pants, even Creature from the Krusty Krab, and even Truth or Square in particular. Like there's a lot of great SpongeBob games, and it's kind of sad to see that there's not as much activity going on ever since Activision basically took the SpongeBob franchise, chewed it up and spit it out. Like it really is sad to see that the SpongeBob franchise in terms of video games is not that active anymore, and Nickelodeon Kart Racers was a very underwhelming comeback in that sense. So we really need a great SpongeBob game to kind of kick the franchise back up into gear and really start a whole new lease on life in terms of SpongeBob video games. And I think a Battle For Bikini Bottom remake or remaster is probably the smartest way of going about it, because in that way you don't really have to design very much from scratch. You pretty much just have to take what worked before, maybe add in some of the cut content and some new content here and there, and voila, you got a brand new spanking game that people will eat up because they missed that game and they want to see it come back. And that would be a great and easy way to restart the franchise. And so I do hope that they are working on something. You know, they brought these licenses, they brought the franchises. I hope THQ Nordic doesn't just leave it in the dust like Activision basically did. But what do y'all think? Let me know in the comment section below what kind of SpongeBob game you'd want to see this year. Do you want to see a 3D platformer? Do you want to see a spin-off? Do you want to see a Battle For Bikini Bottom remake? Is there something else completely different that you would rather see than anything that I talked about? Let me know in the comment section below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel if you like videos like these and want to see more in the future, follow me on Twitter at RidersDX or join my Discord server, the Spongy Garden. And this is Riders, riding out.